Hello and welcome to Tartan Touchdown in Conversation With, our series of podcasts sharing the stories of people within the sport that we love, American football. After a short post-NFL season holiday for our team and in Conversation With, we are back with our next guest. Before we get to them, joining me in the chair tonight for this episode's Gav. Gav, it's been a minute, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Doing good. It's good to be back in the saddle and great to hear Tim's story this evening. So let's get to it.
For those that are watching and listening, make sure you're subscribed to us on YouTube and all podcast platforms to get our new podcasts the minute they drop, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok for all the latest content. For this episode, we're joined by a man that has played this sport at so many different levels in quite a few different countries, and has also given back to the sport with his own coaching programme. From Mount Pleasant, Illinois, via Canada and Brazil to the Bristol Aztecs, we're joined by Tim Lukas. Welcome, Tim. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
We've been kind of chatting on and off for a good few months now. It's been just trying to get ourselves lined up to get out the dates that work for everybody to have you on the show. So it was you who reached out to us, so we really appreciate you reaching out to us to kind of want to come on the show. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, thank you again for hosting me. Like you guys said, growing the game and giving the voice to some players and exposure to it is a very cool thing, in my opinion.
Perfect. So Tim, for the first part of the show, we kind of like to rewind back a wee bit and take our guests back to their earliest memories of being involved in the sport. So for yourself as a kid growing up in Mount Pleasant, what are your kind of earliest sporting memories?
My favorite memories, growing up in the game, I played probably since I was 6 years old, I want to say. And I was real timid when I first started in sports, which is very contrary to like how I play the game now. I started off with your guys' football, soccer to me. And when I was first out there, I was the most timid kid in the entire world. I was scared of everything. Would stand in the middle of the field and I would wait for, everything to happen around me just because I didn't know what to do. Till my coach got so frustrated with me that he picked me up. He's like, he ran with me down the field. He sat me in front of the goal. I passed it to one of my friends. He scored. And then I was like, why am I scared? Like, I love this. This is amazing. So ever since that moment, I kind of flipped the switch. I switched over to baseball, football, hockey, track and field. I loved all sports, but football was the one that stuck out to me. Even though I was better at hockey, football was the one that I just loved. Team environment, shared goal, like challenges, the wins, the losses, the coaching. Once it's in your blood, it's there, right? Like, so my favorite memory is definitely growing up, winning some championships as a younger kid, going through some struggles in my high school team where we were not very good. And I was trying to lead a team that was not very motivated, and trying to get recruited through that process was real frustrating. But, I have a lot of several memories. I think I have 5 total championships throughout my life since I was younger.
Nice.
Obviously 2 out here that are real memorable to me, and just a ton of coaches and players that I'm thankful for that the game has taught me a lot about. So just a lot of great memories. I think hosting up the trophies are always my favorite part. That's because it means a lot.
I read a quote from yourself. You kind of learned earlier on. I'll kind of paraphrase you, but you said that good wasn't enough. Kind of talk us through that mindset and having that so early in your sporting life. What kind of created that mindset for you?
Yeah, most guys who make it a good level are pretty talented, right? You're always going to have good competition. There's always going to be some hype around you, this and that. But the higher you go and the harder level that you get to, you realize that talent is not enough. You can be incredibly talented, and if your work ethic is not there, if you don't care about the sport, if you're not showing up in meetings, or you're not on time, it doesn't mean anything. So at an early age, I knew I could play, but I didn't know how to read the defense. I didn't know about coverages. I didn't know about route techniques, mechanics, all these things that once I got to college, I'm like, man, I am really far behind. No matter how talented I am, I don't know how to convert, a fade route if it's cover 2. And until I learned that, it's, talented is not enough. So what I mean by that and trying to help players get along in the game is that once you become comfortable and knowing what you need to do, what separates players, film study, the mechanics, being in the weight room, all these small things, that's what separates players. And guys like Jameis Winston, Drew Brees, Mike Evans, Amir Abdullah, all these guys that I get to be around all the time, they don't just phone it in because they're talented. They're incredibly talented, right? But most of these guys are the hardest working guys that I've been around. And to me, that's what separates, players that are special, because your talent can carry you so far. But if you're willing to put in that extra work, even when you are talented, to me, that's something I always respect.
Growing up, obviously coming from the great Chicago area in Illinois, it's just a city of such a passionate sporting culture. You've got the Bulls, the Bears, the Blackhawks. Who were your icons and your idols when you were growing up?
Well, you gotta start with Michael Jordan. That's one of my favorites. Like, his attitude and the way that he approached the game, even as basketball, I loved it as a kid because he's so fierce he wasn't concerned about making friends on the basketball court. He didn't care if the fans liked him. He didn't care if, his teammates, if he got under their skin. He cared about winning and pushing people to be great. So that's what I grew up around, watching him win all those championships, and kind of like, I want to take some of these things, these attributes. He's not trying to be the most popular player or trying to care about looking good for the cameras all the time. He wants to win. That's how Kobe Bryant was. That's how a lot of these legendary players are. And then Walter Payton, like that's my guy. That's the reason that I played football. Unfortunately, he passed away when I was maybe like 6, maybe before I even got into playing football. But he is someone that my dad talked about frequently on the '85 Bears. William Perry, the Fridge, Mike Singletary, like a lot of these hard-nosed football Chicago guys, I would watch up and be like, I want to be like them, And Walter Payton was always special to me because he was one of the most elite players as far as physical specimen, talent, the way he played the game, his stiff arm, his forearm. Yet he was one of the most kind persons in the entire world off of the field. And that's how he got the nickname Sweetness. So that was my idol. I'm like, I want to be like that. I want to be an incredible player, but I want to be someone off the field that people respect too.
And there is a reason why it's called the Walter Payton Man of the Year award as well. It kind of reflects his values and what they kind of look for in it. So you must have been a good person for that to happen for you.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's why it's like you said, it's named after him, and his son too, I think was a really good athlete, and his family as well. When he passed away, I remember the moment, like, I think he donated he could have a kidney donated to him to help save his life for a little bit longer, but he didn't want to jump the line because he didn't feel like just his status should earn him that. And as a kid, I was blown away. I'm like, why, Walter? Like, come on, I want you to live longer. But yeah, just a great person.
You kind of mentioned on your high school yourself, Tim, so you went to John Hershey High School in Arlington Heights, which just happens to be where the new Bears Stadium's hopefully going to be built for. That's the plans as well. You mentioned yourself you kind of played a few different sports. You mentioned to yourself about trying to lead a team that was maybe not as motivated. Can you talk us through the challenges of that and kind of how you overcame that?
Yeah, I mean, football was a big passion to me. It's what I cared about more than anything else growing up. I mean, I was good in school and other sports as well, but there's something about the game that when you really sink your teeth into it and you give everything that you have to it, it really binds with you. So it was a little bit tougher being on a team with guys who are not as motivated, or they're more caring about the, social or school or where they're going to college. And that's fine. Everyone has different priorities and whatnot. When you're trying to lead the team and trying to push guys, and I'm going around the school trying to recruit players like to get on my team, it's hard not being successful. And those kind of teach you, values as well. And there's other schools around us that were all very successful. Every school that was around my high school was all playoffs, contenders, having guys getting recruited every year. And I'm over there looking at them like, oh, could be playing for them and getting a scholarship right now. So it was frustrating. I mean, we went 0-9 my junior year, 1-8 my senior year, and I was captain on both teams and laid it out all the time on the line for the team. And I'd be crying myself to sleep some nights when we lose. And I just probably took it harder than a lot of people did because I cared more. But it also taught me to go out and get things on my own too. So not just sit around. I asked my coach to help me with recruiting, and he was really the most savvy in that regard, and is, hey, worry about that after the year. And I'm like, man, I don't think that's how people get recruited. And so it put me kind of behind the 8 ball. I'm like, all right, I have to step into this. I have to send my film out. I have to contact colleges. Like, if I want this, I got to go get it. I can't wait. So that was a tough experience, but it woke me up to be like, hey, if you want something in this life, like, don't be afraid to go try to get it.
You then go on to play at Carthage College after high school. So you kind of started on the practice squad there, and then you kind of went on to play some games with them in the Division 3. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I actually started playing, I think maybe my freshman year right away, about halfway through the season. That's when I was still finding myself. I always had this internal belief like, hey, I believe there's something in here, but it needs development. It needs to be shaped. I need to learn some things. I need to get better coaching. It's there, but it's not ready yet. And that belief started to emerge when, they're calling me out as a freshman to go against the seniors in the starting defense, and I'm on scout team and I'm getting called out to run certain routes. Like, that's when the coaches started going like, all right, who is this? Like, let's get 88 over here, make him. And I was like, okay, are they starting to see it too? Like, that's my first taste of that affirmation. And like, I'm not the only one who sees it right now. Maybe this could be something. And when I tested myself against the better players, I loved it. I didn't care if I lost the rep or I won. Most of the time I won, but the times that I didn't win, I wasn't mad at myself. I'm like, this is information, and now I know how to beat him next route. And then I think I started my games by sophomore year. And that's when I really started to get confident, where I'm like, all right, I'm starting as a sophomore. There's some good players here, and I'm being successful. I'm starting to learn the game a little bit, and I wanted to challenge myself. I'm like, I'm a big fish in a small pond now, and my dream is the NFL. So I got to make a move and see if I can make it happen.
And I'm going to quote you again here. I've done this a few times already tonight, but your exact wording, if I read from your website, is you stacked your chips on yourself and you transferred to University of Illinois as a walk-on, making the squad in 2011. For those that aren't maybe as aware of how it works, what was that step up like from D3 to the Big Ten like?
It was a culture shock. I mean, it was a moment that kind of defined me, because that's when I started to really see what the top athletes in the world, Division I, big school. I think we had 6,000 at the school, and it's a big program, Big Ten. And before, I was always going against either guys that were talented but not Division I level possibly. And it was my first test. Like, can you hang out with the big guys? When I made that decision to transfer, I think my high school coach, I told him about it, and sat down with them, and I'm like, hey, this is what I want to do. I'm starting to believe in myself. I'm going to transfer and walk on. And I was confident in that meeting, telling them that. And I remember their response. They're like you, Tim, you think you can hang with the big guys, the big dogs? And I sat back, and I'm like, I'm a big dog. What do you mean? That's what I remember thinking. I was like, how dare you, not say anything about them, but how dare you think that, you define so that got me the experience. So as soon as I made the team, I made it quite easily at workout. I think they had 45 guys, and only 2 of us made it. Me and a guy named KJ played safety. And I knew I was going to make it. As soon as I did that workout, I prepared for it. I was, showed out, and I knew I was going to make it. So I met with Coach Ron Zook at the time. He helped me with the process a little bit. My sister had gone to the school at the time, and that helped me feel a little familiar with the process. I was getting good grades at Carthage on the dean's list. So I felt like I'm ready for this test. Then once I got in the door, it was like a wake-up call, because now I'm watching guys like Nathan Shieldhouse and some of these starters, AJ, and what they do behind the scenes. I'm looking at them like, man, they're talented as I've ever seen, and yet they're staying here later than everybody. They're showing up on Wednesdays on optional yoga days. They're watching film of themselves. They're meeting with coaches. And I'm realizing the gap in what I'm doing and what they're doing. And I'm saying, yeah, they're talented than me, but they're also doing a lot more than I am to get that starting role. So it took me about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, to finally get to know how to read a defensive coverage in real time and make adjustments. It took me a while to learn how quick you need to learn the playbook and be at the line of scrimmage, and if a quarterback calls an audible, right? These are all things that I've never had experience with, right? So I definitely felt behind the 8 ball, that no one taught me that beforehand. No one taught me how to read coverages. No one taught me how to make an adjustment on a route to open up space for myself. But once I started learning it, it was like I couldn't get enough. I'm like, man, now I want to know everything about the game. I want to learn everything about mechanics. And I would just watch. And I was so lucky to just watch some of these guys do it, so that I could take some of their game too for me. So that helped me a long way. It was frustrating to be Division I level and that requirement of work that's there, and also a student at the same time. But like I said, I like challenges, so it woke me up in the right way.
I think it's something people probably underestimate, because obviously people just see these athletes get out and playing, but they forget the academic side of it as well. You've still got to do your studying as well.
Yeah.
So you can't just dedicate your whole time to being on the football field. You still need to go and do your studies as well.
It's a full-time job. It really is. I mean, now they get paid for it with the deals that they have and everything. But at the time, it felt like a full-time. I'm like, we're waking up probably 5 a.m., 5:30 workouts till about 6:55. Then you're showering, eating breakfast, going to class all day. You come back at 3 o'clock. Now you have film and then practice again. So you really don't come home until probably 7 o'clock at night, and even in the off season. And then you still have schoolwork. You still have, your homework to do, and you still have to wake up and do it the next day. So getting acclimated to that was a lot, but I became a better player from it.
During your time at Illinois, you've kind of named it a couple of your teammates there, but there's a good bit of alumni from your team that you were involved in, one of them being Ted Karras, who's went on to win 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And he's still playing as a starting centre for the Bengals at the moment. And someone else you mentioned, is he you still keeping contact with Ted?
So I did run into Teddy maybe a couple years ago. I can't remember where it was, but Teddy was one of my favorite guys on the team, incredibly smart athlete. And this is what I've realized about these offensive linemen, is a lot of times they're some of the smartest guys and most athletic on the team. And especially centers too, because they have to make a lot of adjustments. They have to make a lot of calls at the line of scrimmage. And Teddy was in my math class, and he would be helping me all the time with algebra, I'm like, man, this big offensive lineman, like, sometimes you never expect that from appearance wise, but Teddy was incredibly smart, really good guy, great character. I believe he has a younger brother who's a great player as well, and he's still doing it. And that's a cool thing.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see when you have former teammates like him still playing at an elite level. We had an outside linebacker, Whitney Merciless, if you guys have ever heard that name.
Yeah, got him as well, yeah.
And he was, again, when I was at school, I was looking at guys like him, like, this is a beast. Like, look at it. I'm walking down the hallway, I'm 6'4", but I'm feeling tiny. I'm like, man, but just great character people. Those guys like Teddy, like Whitney, Nathan, AJ, some of these guys really took me under their wing because they saw how much I wanted it. They're like, Tim, you might not know how to do it yet, but you want it real bad and you work hard. So, let's try to help you along.
And also, you mentioned a couple of times yourself there, and Nate Shieldhouse, he's now one of the most sought after head coach. Got into the NFL now as well. Could you see that? I know obviously he was quite young at it, but could you see that?
Nathan knew, I think, probably, not saying anything about our corner, the corners were great, but Nathan probably knew the playbook and every bit of responsibility more than anybody else in the building. That's how he was. He prepared, he showed up, he was talented, he never used excuses, and he was just always kind of focused. So yeah, I could see that, him becoming a great character. I think his success and the numbers that his quarterbacks have put up the last couple of years are insane.
Yes. Being at the Rams, obviously, with a really focused, offensive-minded head coach as well, will make a massive difference to that as well. But yeah, it's good. It must be good for you seeing those guys that you've got to play with go and have that kind of level of success.
Yeah, and you can tell. I mean, sometimes you can tell those attributes in people when they're that driven and that motivated, and the habits that they have behind the scenes. Like, it's not hard for me to be like, man, Nathan is pretty successful right now. Teddy is still rocking, still going. And Whitney too. Whitney was a great player, and that success is a lot of times it's more about what they're doing behind the scenes when no one's watching than just who they are.
You kind of stated that at college, you became obsessed with that process behind the success and performance. But coming out of college, then before we kind of move on to the path that you did take, where did you see yourself kind of going at the end of your kind of college career? What kind of paths did you have?
So obviously, most kids growing up, and when you're playing, I think just like here, if your goal here as a UK player is to get a scholarship to be a Division I player, right? That's almost everyone's goal as a younger player here. Same thing as a kid in the US. You want to be a Division I player, you want to go on and have a shot at the NFL. And that's always what I dreamt of as a kid since 6 years old. I think about it every single day. I go to sleep thinking about it. I wake up, I'm thinking about football all day in class. Like, that's what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I could be talented in other sports, but football was my thing. So, that was my path. I wanted to test myself at Division I level and see if I can hang with those guys. And once I realized that I could and that there was more ceiling for me to open up as soon as I started learning more about the game, I started becoming really more obsessed with the process, challenging myself. And it's not to say it's all daisies and rainbows at Illinois either. I definitely went through some hard times too, and some injuries, unfortunate coaching changes, and going from walk on to second on the depth chart, and then new coaching staff comes in, and I'm dropped all the way back down on the floor. I'm like, it taught me a lot. And then I went through a separated shoulder my senior year, right when I started climbing up, getting some special teams, traveling with the team, and right when I thought the door was going to start opening up for me, went through another really bad shoulder injury right before training camp, a week before it started. I go for a pass that I didn't have equipment on. Shouldn't have been doing it, but I want to catch everything. That was one of the hardest chapters because I didn't sit out. I tried coming back through it instead of redshirting, and you can't be a good receiver with one hand. You can't. So I kind of lost my positioning at that point, tried finishing out the year and regaining my spot, and it just didn't work how I expected it to. So I took some time off. I went over to California. I started working as an outdoor education teacher, and I had an awesome job. I love outdoor education. I love hikes. I love nature. So that's my other passion besides football. I'm like, all right, let's try this. Let's see if I'm ready for the real world. And since my shoulder got banged up and it didn't work out, but again, I couldn't sleep at night. Did that for about 8 months, and I'm like, I miss football, man. I couldn't. I had a great job, a great setup. I'm living as an adult, like I'm living in California. I'm living the life, but I'm like, I gotta see if I can keep playing. At that point, I just wanted to get going again. I started putting feelers out with my tape from Illinois and Carthage, and just sending it out and just seeing what the possibilities were. And I got some interest from teams like Poland, and I think there was a team in Paris at the time. And then Brazil landed in my inbox. For some reason, Brazil has kind of alert to it. And as a kid, I always wanted to see Brazil, and I'm like, Brazil, huh? Like, all right, I could go to Brazil and play a little football. And they wanted me to play
Even
quarterback too. And have
you
you guys
it just jumps out on TV.
say it again?
I was just saying, even now, that's the one Brazil that just jumps out on your CV.
Because when you think about it, I mean, if you guys have ever been there, it's always, Brazil is beautiful. The people are absolutely amazing. That's the one thing I take from the experience is they don't need a lot to be happy. They don't need the newest iPhone. They don't need a PlayStation. They don't need an Xbox. They don't need tons of followers. They need their family and a football and to have fun with the people they love. And I love that about them. They treated me like I was one of their own. I lived with two guys, Diego and Gustavo, who learned English in about 5 weeks. And I was like, like just from playing video games with me, they knew how to, communicate. And I was like, all right, these guys are cool. I like them. So Brazil taught me a lot about the game of playing a different position and processing the field from a quarterback's position. I played it a little bit when I was younger as a kid, but obviously it's nothing like, playing against adults. And I ran the ball a lot. I'm not gonna lie, I took it and I had it already. So I'm like, let's go, let's go score. Even my receivers were like, Tim, you're a quarterback, but you're supposed to throw it to us. Like, I have it already. Like, I'm just gonna go.
Yeah.
And that was a process because quarterbacks have a unique challenge. They have to be not only the leaders on the field, they have to be aware of what everybody is doing, but they have to process the field in about a second and a half, make reads. And you have guys who are 6'3", 240 pounds trying to kill you. That's not an easy task to do on any level. So it slowed down my processing because I had to understand what a quarterback sees when he drops back, right? And what timing looks like and what it feels like. I'm used to running routes and trying to get open my whole life. That's one job and that's hard enough. But quarterbacks have to pay attention to everything going on in the field. So from that process, I learned a ton about what the quarterback is seeing while I'm running a route and the timing that goes into that, what I can do even from a receiver's perspective to make it friendlier for a quarterback as far as shaving routes down and just the responsibility that they have. Learned a little Portuguese. They call me the local cachorro over there. It translates to crazy dog just because that's how I play. I'm really intense out there. I played safety. I played defensive end. I played quarterback. And I had fun. I would play the whole game. I didn't want to come out. I'd be drained afterwards, but I'm like, I'm staying on this field until someone takes me off with a cart. And we won a championship. So that was really cool.
Yeah, it's always a great reward. I mean, obviously, it's been a really fascinating chapter in your own personal journey, but just be interesting to know now, sort of 10 years on, everyone's starting to see the NFL getting a foothold in Brazil and support for the top league in the world. But tell us about what the football culture was like in Brazil when you were there.
Yeah, so I would say it's a little bit similar in the fact of like the popularity of like the UK. So there is a smaller demographic that loves it, and then there's obviously more popular sports like volleyball. I know cricket's really popular here, rugby, your guys' football. So there's the bigger sports that take up the bigger demographic. However, the people who do love American football, they love it. Like that's their thing. And that's what I loved it. I was like, I don't care if the whole country loves it. This smaller demographic, that's their thing. Like they eat, live, and sleep American football, and they love them NFL. So all my teammates would be, hey, this player, and they have jerseys on, and they were just emphatic about it because they get to watch it. They play that, Madden game and whatnot. So that's what I identify with because that's how I feel about the game too. Like I love it. I don't care if there's 10 people watching or 1,000. I'm gonna be playing my heart out regardless. And that's how the guys work. And I respect the teammates, the guys that are out there playing for free and guys who have wives and kids and work a 9-to-5 job. We have guys on the Aztecs that are like that too, right? And they're paying for their kids and they still show up and they still put 110% in. So from an American perspective, when I see that, it makes me feel like, okay, I got to do this too. Like if these guys are willing to work that hard for it and they're not doing it to get any money out of it or, contracts, then I better show up and do the work too. And that always earns a lot of respect to me. Same thing with the Aztecs players and UWE and these guys. Man, some of these guys sacrifice a lot more than most people know in terms of their time, in terms of their effort, being away from their families. And to me, that always, I respect that a lot.
Following Brazil, Tim, you then kind of transitioned to playing indoor and arena football from 2017. You kind of played in your first stint in Colorado, Washington, and Green Bay. How did your move into that kind of discipline of the sport come about?
So it was kind of interesting. Like I got back into football with Brazil and getting myself back in shape and back in that football culture because it restarted my NFL dream or that high level dream. I'm like, man, I still got this and I still have a lot that I can unlock in myself. And now that I just won a championship and I'm back in shape, now I'm hungry again. I started going to workouts in Florida, I believe, for arena football teams or CFL. I think it was Saskatchewan. A few teams invited me to do these like local regional combines, and those can be hit or miss. You know, sometimes they're money grabs, sometimes they'll pick some guys. However, I was showing what I could do out there. You know, I've got a big frame, 6'4", about 220. And, you know, I got good speeds for my size. And I didn't get picked from that team, I think Saskatchewan that day. I had to go work out, but there was another coach helping there with the workout, and he was the arena coach for the local team in Florida. And he came over, pulled me to the side, said, "Tim, yeah, man, you had a great workout." I remember they called me Baby Gronk over there, and I'm like, all right, like, you know, like maybe I can make it in one of these levels and work my way up. And once that coach pulled me to the side, said, "I want to sign you to my team. You know, you can use it to get film. It's arena, it's tighter, it's faster. You're gonna have to learn a little bit more, but you might get called up to the next level because you have, you know, we think you got it." So that's all I had to hear. You know, I was like, let me sign today. Like, I'm good. Let's do it. And, you know, it worked out like that. You know, it was a lower level, I think a IFL league, Florida Tarpons and Central Florida Jaguars. I think that's what the name was, AIFL. And it was opportunity. You know, a lot of guys, that's what we want. We want opportunity to show what we can do. There might have only been 500 fans in attendance or whatever. And I was getting paid maybe $200 a game, but I got a hotel room out of it. I got football, and I got to get paid, you know, a check from playing American football. And that was always my goal as a kid. I want to earn a check, you know, like I want to earn money for my skills, and I want to play at my highest level, and I'll push myself. So as soon as that became reality, that's when I, you know, really turned it on. Say, hey, I'm gonna take this serious as I can. I was playing with the Florida Jags at the time, and I got called up to the AFL team, the Tampa Bay Storm, which I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of them, but they're an old AFL team, which is one of the higher teams of the old AFL, like the real AFL. So my local presence was getting me attention to get pulled up in the AFL, and they invited me to practice. So I was going, I was working double days. I would go to practice with the Jags and then go over and practice with the Storm, and I was exhausted and killing myself. Like, you know, my legs were dying, but that's what I wanted to do. And I think at the time the coach told me like, "Hey, we want you to move up, but don't bite the hand that feeds you, like, because we need you here." And I remember at the time being torn because I'm like, man, like this team wants me there every day to possibly bring me up, but this team that is, you know, I'm on a contract for wants me here every day. So I kept going to the practices anyway. And, you know, eventually, even though I was leading the team in touchdowns and receptions by like the third game, the coach is like, "Tim, like, we told you, like, you know, you had to make a choice and you're still going to their practices." I'm like, "Yeah, because I want to move up. Like, that's what you told us we're here for." So I think they released me after that because they wanted to send a message to the rest of the guys on, you know, staying tight and everything. I got signed to their rival team the next day and then finished the season with them. We ended up beating them twice in the season, you know, catching touchdowns over their bench and like, "What's up, coach?" Like, you know, "You remember me?" So that was a cool experience. And that got me my contract in the IFL, which is more of a longstanding team or league in Colorado Crush. And that was when it became more professional to me. Like, you know, there's now thousands of fans in the stadium. There's more training camp etiquette, you know, scheduling. Our jerseys are washed and, you know, equipment managers. And that's when I felt like, okay, like now I'm here at least, like, and made some great connections. My quarterback there is the UNH head coach now, Sean Goldrich, and he's my ride or die. Like, you know, he would fight for me until the cows came home and vice versa. He was my roommate there. And guys like that can really elevate the experience because he found me on the field. He wanted my success for me too. And I started putting up numbers right away. I think, again, I was leading the team maybe 5 games in or so until I tore my meniscus and went through some troubles there. But, you know, it's been an interesting chapter every time I go because I've had success and then struggle and then success. And that's, you know, typical of anyone. I think if you enter your passion and you try to go after something, you know, you have to go through a lot of hard times first.
In arena football, we'll come on to talk about it in a bit. So it is a new kind of niche in the UK. There are people like that are involved in American football will have a rough understanding of it. But what did you enjoy about playing arena football?
Like, it prepared me for the next level. No doubt about it. I tell the younger guys this, like, if you have an opportunity, don't worry about that it's not a 100-yard field. Don't worry about that you're not making $500,000 or $1 million or whatnot. You get to play football and it's fast. So all of your catches, your reads as a quarterback, as a running back, your holes have to hit faster. As a receiver, your timing has to be almost elite. You cannot hide behind the space or, a bad coverage. You have to make yourself open and it has to be fast. A lot of times the quarterbacks are throwing the ball before you're even breaking on a post route or in a corner, which is crazy because you almost never happens in American football now, but they'll take a 2-step drop. And before you even break to your corner route, that ball's already up in the air. So now you have to go get to that spot. And it forces you to learn the game fast. And that's the hardest thing for a lot of players is to process the field, right? To know what you're looking at, what defense, where you should be at, especially if you're just picking up the game in the last couple of years. It's really hard to do, but you don't always know exactly the field dimensions. If they're rotating safeties, if they drop a linebacker, it almost makes your mind go like, uh-oh, like if you're not ready for it, right? But so arena makes you ready for that even faster. All your cuts have to be quicker. The ball's coming out faster. You got to catch it in space, make something happen. I felt like a dog like in a cage, or like a hungry dog.
Yeah, so I think it's I guess for listeners who maybe not familiar with the sport, it's typically like an ice hockey rink size of field or flag football field. It's about half the length, half the width of what you're used to in a conventional football.
It's kind of like if you guys probably play or have indoor soccer or football, right? Fields here, right? Those little, it's almost the same kind of dimension. So to me, being a big body receiver and possession type receiver, that's not my, forte. I want space. I'm like a Jason Witten type guy for a Cowboys fan. I want space. I want to sit in zone coverages and get my catches and first downs. Like that's where I have the most success. So when they flipped me to play slot receiver and now I'm running waggle and, having to beat safety one-on-one who's faster than me, it forced me to like learn little things like nuances, turning my head and make him step the wrong way. Like, so it really made me prepared, and it got my physical, like catching balls over the wall and flipping over and landing with the fans. Like that's something you never really prepare yourself to do. When you want to catch the ball, you'll do what it takes. They say the wall is undefeated. Yeah. Have you guys ever heard that? They say the wall is undefeated. That's a very arena popular reasons. When that ball's up in the air and you have to make a decision, like a business decision, you're like, all right, I know that the ball's coming here, but the wall's there and I can't catch it unless I go over the wall. Your body is trying to tell you, don't do that. But your mind's like, I got to go get that ball. And if you don't do it, your coaches are not very happy either.
Yeah. I mean, what I thought all about it, about American football in general, doesn't matter what level you're at, the fundamentals are always the same. Whether it's flag football, whether it's NFL, whether it's college or arena, those basic fundamentals, like you say, people have got a chance to go and develop those fundamentals at any sort of level. It's something that you're never going to lose that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's what it gets you prepared for. If you want to play at the next level, the CFL, the NFL, if you want to get an XFL opportunity, and these guys that are hoping for that, you are not going to get that by being at the couch or just showing up to workouts. Like you can work out until you're blue in the face. You can be the most talented player in the entire world. But unless you're playing somewhere, no coach is going to take you serious. You can call as many people as you want. It doesn't matter until they see you on a team and know that you're A, competing against competition, B, in shape, and C, that you know playbooks and things like that. You won't get opportunity. Most likely you're not going to get opportunities. That's why you hear stories like Kurt Warner, right? And I had a great chance to talk to him on a call a couple of years ago, and I just was thanking him because he gives a lot of motivation to players that are, want to be like him. Bagging groceries at 28 and playing for the Iowa Barnstormers, and now he's an NFL, future Hall of Famer quarterback, right? Like that's an incredible story.
Yeah, I mean, we're both massive Claymores fans, NFL Europe fans, so we had the privilege of watching him when he played over in Amsterdam, and like you say, to develop an NFL career at that age is probably unheard of now. It's probably never going to happen again, is it?
Well, the NFL Europe, I'm gonna just plug my computer in real quick if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
NFL Europe was what, the 80s, right?
No, mid 90s to early 2000s.
2000.
Yeah, and so you had the World League, which was before, and then it became NFL Europe when NFL kind of officially got affiliated with it, and sent over kind of practice squad players or people coming out of college to give them that experience. In NFL, so players like Kurt Warner, Jake DeLong, Dante Hall, I think there's loads of them. James Harrison, all players like that, all developed in NFL Europe. Yeah, he played for Rhein Fire.
I had one of my assistant coaches from Illinois was NFL Europe, so he would talk about it in the stories all the day, and they loved it. American players do like coming out to Europe because it's a different life, and it differentiates you from just another player in the U.S. and it gives us opportunity to make connections, to widen your game and everything. Just the ability to go overseas and play at a high level and still get film and get exposure and keep your dream alive is, to me, absolutely worth it. And really cool experience.
Someone else who played in the NFL Europe but didn't go on to have a massive NFL career but had a career in other aspects is Terry Crews. He played in NFL Europe as well. You know the actor Terry Crews? He played in NFL Europe as well.
Dang, I didn't know that. That's actually pretty cool.
I loved it. I miss it. I used to work on the chain crews for the Claymores, so I was up close and personal with this, and we miss it. It's unfortunately one of those things.
Is that when you guys began, like, fans of NFL or the football in general, like when you saw it first?
So I grew up with it because my dad used to be an official. He used to be a BAFA official.
Okay, cool.
So it was my dad. My dad refereed for nearly 30 years in Britball. So I kind of grew up around the sport and that aspect of it. So I've always been involved in the sport one way or another.
I mean, to me, it's fascinating for how the fans here get into it. Like, there's always some reason. Like, my dad liked it, or I've watched, Tom Brady, or I watched the Buccaneers, and then you just become a fan of like that team or that person. And it's like once football's in your blood, it doesn't go out.
Yeah. No, that's definitely me. Like, I can't remember. I remember going to games with my dad and being the ball boy. This was maybe maybe 7 or 8. Yeah, I'd go to the games on Sunday with him, and I would be the ball boy, and then eventually would move up to be the chain crew. And eventually got to the point where, like, no, I'm just coming to watch now. I'm not going doing these jobs. I kind of just did it all for there. So yeah, so I've been kind of entrenched in the sport from a really young age. So
yeah, kind of similar to Dan. So I think I probably first, like a lot of sort of European fans, first came across the sport really through Madden, and I think it was the Sega Mega Drive probably at the time. But first experience of live American football, like Dan, was the Scottish Claymores and NFL Europe. So that the first year I went was like 1996, and they actually won the World Bowl, which was like the sort of the championship game of the leagues. Yeah, I mean, going to see this foreign sport, which pulls like almost 40,000 fans in a stadium, like outside of football, even rugby at that time, you're kind of struggling to get that kind of crowd for most of the games. So I think that's what really kind of sold it to me, being able to experience it in the flesh. Kind of mixed opinions, because obviously, I think for a lot of NFL fans, NFL Europe or the World League wasn't quite on that level. But yeah, for me, being able to be there in person and actually have that immediate connection with the team really kind of helped to grow that love for the sport.
For sure. I mean, once you're in that environment and the sounds and this, I went to the Bears game against the Jags last 2 years ago, or when we played over in London. And it was cool to watch the fans of the game. Like, I was interested in to see how the, England and London fans that are not super accustomed to the rules and regulations and whatnot, how they would experience a game. And the first half was kind of boring. Like, even from a Bears fan, there wasn't a lot of action, and people were still trying to pick up the rules and like, wait, what is that? Why are they kicking the ball on this down? Or, like a penalty would happen and be like, wait, why does that not count? But like by halftime, when plays started like, really picking up a little bit, you should have heard by third quarter and fourth quarter, it's like these people have been fans of the sport forever. Like, they were getting into it, and I was like, yeah, like, this is football, baby. Like, so that was really cool. And I love that the NFL, you mentioned it too, Dan, that they're expanding, as a business model, because they're obviously the most dominant sport in America by a landslide. However, they're looking at the world now like, hey, if we can wake up a few more demographics to this, no matter how much we have to play overseas, and if, it's still a little sloppy and whatever, eventually it's going to catch on, and then the market is going to grow. And that's why there's the programs like NFL Academy and the ELF and even BAFA, like it adds exposure to that and increases viewership out here and fans and players.
Yeah, it's I guess a great sport to follow. We'll bring it back to yourself in your career. Can we kind of tell ourselves a wee bit off piece there? After your kind of time at the Arena League, you kind of moved on to the CFL with Montreal Alouettes and BC Lions. What can talk us through your time in the CFL and your experiences there?
So that was another learning curve for me too, right? Because at this point, I'm realizing that I have the tools, and that, the talent gap is not incredibly hard to overcome, but it's more about the mental side, right? It's more about preparing and knowing the playbook. And that's one of the hardest things when you're going from league to league. You get a stack of maybe, a 60-page pretty much a Bible worth of a place to learn. And every system is a little bit different and different terminology. Coaches have different rules for different routes and these things that take time, right? And that's where I started learning, okay, now I have to put all these things that I'm starting to learn together, right? I have to learn the waggle from arena football, and now I have to transfer it to a slightly bigger field, which is, almost like a cheat code for a receiver because, if you tell me I can just run full steam before a play starts, I'm taking that every time. It's really hard for a defender to sit there flat footed and try to cover you that way. Having that experience of arena where it was really tight and fast to now opening up the field. I remember my first practice up in Montreal, I was like, so much field. Like, look at all this space. I felt like a dog was caged up for 2.5 years and like, go play, Tim. Like, go ahead, go run around the yard. And I was like, yes. So it became a lot more like fun, but serious too, because at that point, even though I didn't make the whole year, I think that was my first contract signing, a 6-figure deal. And again, like, I came from a program where I barely had a Division III scholarship and an NAI scholarship and didn't really know what I was doing out of high school to now signing a contract worth 6 figures. And I'm like, see, this is the hard work paying off. This is, the belief in myself. This is the hours that people do not see. This is, myself answering all these questions like, Tim, you really think you could do it? Or you really think you're a big dog? And this is like, yeah, like, I am. So that was really cool. And I think I played against Johnny Manziel. My first preseason game was against Hamilton. I was up there for maybe 6 days. So I was just getting the playbook. They dressed me for the first game when I didn't even have the playbook yet. And I was still like itching into my OC, like, put me out there. He's like, I was like, I don't care. Let me go. Like the whole game, I was like nudging him. He's like, dude, you don't have the playbook yet. Like, how are you going to do it? I was like, I don't care. Like, I want to play. So, I was itching. I was hungry, and they like that. Coaches always like that. And, by the second preseason game, I had about half the playbook down. I went out there and I was super nervous. I'm like, man, all right, this is it. Like, I'm on TV now. And within the first play, all the butterflies dropped. I started balling right away. I think I had like maybe 3 or 4 catches and a half, and I was making some big plays. And I'm like, all right, this is like, this is me doing it now. And that was an awesome moment for me because now I'm hearing, 50,000 fans. And just like when I was at Illinois, I believed in myself to be on the field, but I wasn't getting access to do that yet. And finally, now years later, I'm like, all right, here I am. And it didn't bother me at all. If anything, I was like, man, I don't know what I was so worried about. I'm prepared for this. This is me. And it was bittersweet because I felt like I had one of the more successful training camps as a receiver. It gave me number 46. So usually when that happens, you're fighting an uphill battle, like as a receiver. And I was showing out what I could do. I was staying with the coaches and after meetings, bothering them, staying there till 9 o'clock at night with them, going over plays to make sure I knew what I was doing. And it taught me a lot. It taught me about responsibility. And then to not make the team at that point, even though I felt like I had a really strong training camp, was one of the most bittersweet, plane rides back to the US that I could possibly have. Because I was incredibly happy and proud of what I did out there. And like, man, there's only probably one play that I would change, ran an out route. I think I overextended a little bit and a linebacker came flying by and had a pick six that I could have shaved a little bit more. That was the only play that I wish I could have back. But I was proud of myself, yet I was still getting cut and sent home. And I'm like, man, this is tough because I don't know if there's more I could have done. I was successful, yet there's 4 other receivers that have guaranteed contracts that they don't want to cut because if they bring me along, they have to pay those guys and cut one of them and pay me. So now I'm getting exposed to the business side of it where I'm like, man, even though I had better camps than them, even though, I was successful, I did everything right I could, the business side of it is not going to work out for me here. So that was a really tough meeting with the general manager where they're telling me, hey, we love you. We want to bring you back. But, we got guys on guaranteed contracts. So, maybe we could bring you back at the end of the season. And that's hard to answer questions from your family. And like, what do you mean you're getting cut? Or what do you like? I thought you were balling. And I'm like, yeah, it's business, So it was about a year again before I got anything else traction wise. And I was on my agent. I was sending a film out to everywhere. And that's the in-between period that a lot of guys struggle with. When you're not with the team, you're not having a chance to get playing time, when you're either sitting behind somebody or things are not going well for you. Yeah. The mental side can get at you. And it's really hard to overcome because it's not easy to do this. But eventually I got a workout with the BC Lions. My agent got me to fly up there. And, again, I did really well, got signed again. And I'm like, this is affirmation. So you learn a lot about yourself through these kind of processes and what kind of football player you are and what kind of person you are as well.
You described one of your next career, next sporting move as a pivot, which I think is probably underestimating that a wee bit. But you then began training with the US bobsled team. Like that just seems like a complete 360. Like how did you go from playing football to attending trials for bobsled and subsequently making the team? How does that happen?
So it's an awesome story actually, and it's one that I never would have pictured myself in a million years. I never grew up like with the goal like, oh, I'm gonna make the Olympics or something. If anything, I would have thought, yeah, I'm talented as an athlete, but I'm not fast enough or I'm not strong enough, whatever, to make the Olympics. And I got to give a shout out to my trainer back home, and one of my rocks, Todd Durkin, is one of the best people, not just trainer, but people that I've ever ran into. I was at a mutual workout in this in between period where I didn't know what was going on. I was just putting myself out there. I was showing up to workouts, working out. He saw me working with some of the younger receivers, and he really liked that because not only was I a good athlete, but I was helping the younger generation. And that's why he came over and put his hand around me, said, Tim, tell me your story. And he's good at what he does. He's Drew Brees' right-hand man. Like Drew Brees, a lot of his success is attributed to Todd Durkin from how much he pushed and elevated him. Guys like LaDainian Tomlinson, a lot of these players, MLB players, attribute their success because he's the guy behind them, working on them through these challenges and shaping them, right? And he saw something in me and he took me along. He helped me out. He started working out with Chase Daniel, Drew Brees, Luis Perez, who's another famous second leaguer and great and a quarterback as well. And he started opening these doors to these environments for me because of who I am, not because of what I can do, but just because of the person that he saw in me. So eventually I'm working out with these guys and starting to get acclimated to some of these, multi-millionaire personalities and workouts with them. And I'm like, okay, like I'm starting to become, like these guys, and I'm watching them. Chase Daniel, same way, the way he operates, he's there early, he's on time, he's pushing himself. He knows, what he's doing. He's not taking shortcuts. And this guy's a backup, yeah, but he's one of the most successful backups in the NFL, highest paid earner total. And he knows the playbooks like that, right? So at the time, Todd was opening up these doors for me. I was waiting on my next opportunity. I know I'm a football player, and he got a phone call with one of his friends who's an Olympic bobsled coach. He's a well-connected person and everything. They reached out to Todd and said, do you have any athletes between 6'2" to 6'4" who are about 200 to 230 pounds who are fast, strong, and explosive? And Todd's like, yeah, I got your guy. Like, I got your guy, right? So he called me that same night and he's like, Tim, like, I know this is going to sound a little crazy to you, but I just want you to keep an open mind. Real quick, he told me he had the phone call seeking an athlete that's like me, that from the Olympic bobsled team for their brakemen, because that's the type of athlete they look for. And I was like, bobsled? Like, what? Like, what? I don't know. Have you guys seen Cool Runnings?
Yeah.
That's about my experience with bobsled up until this point. And that's what I asked him. I said, like, Cool Runnings? And he's like, yeah, like Cool Runnings. Like, have you ever thought about it? I'm like, no. And he's like, would you do it? And I was like, I don't think so. Like, I'm a football player. I don't know how to do that. And he's like, just sleep on it. He's like, sleep on it. Don't say no to it yet. Sleep on it. And he's a great guy and challenging people and opening doors for people. And I'm like, all right, if Todd's bringing this to me and he thinks I should maybe try it out. And I was like, nah, like I'm a football player. I don't want to waste my time. And then the Olympic coaches called me that evening to recruit me. And at that point, when I have Olympic coaches on my line calling me personally to come invite me out to camps, I'm like, yeah, I can't say no to that. Like, I got to try that, So it was a whirlwind. They flew me out to Lake Placid to compete in like a rookie mini camp where they had about 50 of us who were, all but got brought there by either trainers or recruited into that field to, test your abilities, right? They push you through a 3-day like mini crash course where we're out there in Lake Placid and we're doing dry runs on land and you're pushing the sleds. And I'm around these Olympians in the Olympic training facility with my pass. I'm like, man, how did I get here? Like how did a week ago I was training for football like in San Diego, and now I'm walking around with Olympians looking at Yoko Ono's picture, and I'm like, this is wild. So I put everything I had into it. I'm pretty fast and strong, so I was doing well with the competitions, and it taught me the coaching because I was nervous at the time. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not used to being nervous a lot in life. I'm usually prepared and whatnot, but this is a separate domain where I have zero experience. I don't even know the positions. I don't know what I'm doing. But yet there's a lot of pressure on me, right? Because I have Olympic coaches watches me. I have timetables. I have my speed trainer who's watching and asking me how I'm doing and stuff. So I'm like, I want to do a good job. I think I finished in the top 3 out of the 45 or 50 people that they have there in all the competitions, and they saw something in me. So made the team off of that. They got brought back to do their rookie camps and started competing on ice and whatnot. And then eventually did good with that too, and got brought in to do international competition. So I got to put on the USA bobsled jersey and my helmet and race against Brazil and China and Japan. And I'm like, man, never in my wildest dream. I still have a scar on the back of my shoulder that will be there forever because it's fast. You go 96 miles an hour up to 90, probably over 100 sometimes when you're flying down this. And if you guys have ever seen it, a brakeman's job is to push. I was in a 2-man, right? So you push from the back at the beginning like a locomotive. And then once you get in to the sled, your job is pretty much done at that point. And you have to put your head between your legs and you can't see a thing. And you're just sitting there and you're in there for the ride. So like, it's one of the most like incredibly crazy feelings to know that you're going down this whole track at 96 miles an hour and you are not influencing the car as much. You know, you're paying attention to the curves, but your whole life is in the driver's hands. And my driver, Derek, shout out to Derek, is a great pilot, but you have to be so incredibly on. It's like flying a F-150 fighter pilot. That's what they told me the equivalent is. So you have to do it for about 6 years worth of training before they even let you do it on ice. And you have to know that thing like you're flying, F-150 because of the G-force and because of the responsibility. You make one wrong turn and you could be responsible for both of your lives. My guy that I started off with, Derek, he's a little bit of a thrill seeker like me. He cut a corner when we were training one day on, I think, turn 13. We're going down this thing, we're flying. I'm like, man, what am I doing? Holding on for dear life. And I remember something going wrong because I could feel it. You can't see anything, but we went on turn 13 and start wobbling a little bit. And I'm like, this doesn't feel right. Like I can't see what's going on, but we ended up going too quick on a turn and we flipped upside down on the track. And then we had to go about halfway down, upside down. And again, I can't see anything. I don't know what's going on. It felt like a car crash on steroids. I'm like, I'm gonna die here. Like this is it for me. I hope my mom knows I love her. Like this is it. That's it. This is it. I had a good run, and we're going down the slide again at about probably 90 miles an hour upside down. I can't see anything. Remember, for about a second and a half, I had to go back to my training and realize, like, what did they tell me to do here? What did the coaches tell me? If this situation happens, I have to listen and think back, what did they tell me to do? Or else I'm not going to make it. I could get ejected and break my neck, whatever. So they told me to put my head and wedge it across the ice so that it would take all the force of the ice instead of my shoulder or my back or anything, right? So I start doing that upside down and it's, crazy sounds are happening. It's like you're on a roller coaster that's just gone haywire and you have no control over it. And I'm, sitting there and the loud sound is scraping from the ice. And I'm like, this is not good. Like this is not what I signed up for, but we made it all the way down for maybe another 30 seconds or so. And I didn't get ejected. I was holding on for dear life. I got to the bottom and I was like, holy cow, like I'm alive. I thought I was dreaming. I was like, there's no way. I was tracking my body real quick. I'm like, do I have any broken bone? Like, holy cow, we're safe. I'm not hurt. But then I remember they told me one other thing is that when the track ends, it doesn't end flat. It ends on uphill so that the sled is able to come back down and slow down. And even though I felt safe going all the way down upside down, when we went back downwards, back on the track, now my whole back was exposed to the ice. And so for the next maybe 12 seconds, the ice tore through my Team USA jumpsuit. I was wearing shoulder pads, football shoulder pads at the time, underneath during training. It tore through that, 2 Under Armour long sleeves and a hoodie, and burned my back like, the size is like this big. And like I was, obviously a lot of emotions were going through my brain. I'm like, I just survived one of the scariest things in my entire life, but my adrenaline was pumping and I didn't have broken bones. Like the EMTs came over, checked us out, and I was like, I'm good, like, okay. And they wouldn't let me race for the rest of the day. And then the next day they asked me like, okay, Tim, you want to get back out there? And then I know my parents were scared. I know my family was nervous for me, but I always get to those moments where I'm like, you either answer the bell or you don't. You go home and you do something else, and it's okay. It's not for everyone. We had tons of football players out there that were stronger than me and bigger than me that quit on the first day because they were like, no, like this is not for me. But I remember asking myself, like, is this going to make me quit? I'm like, no, Like, I'm strong, I'm capable, I will make the adjustments next time, we'll talk about it with the teammates or whatever. And I was back in the sled the next day. So I think that taught me a lot too. Like, hey, you might not be prepared for all the challenges that you take on, but it doesn't mean that you're not supposed to take them on. And I got back out there, raced a little bit, I always have those memories and those pilots, and I got a scar on my back to thank Derek for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it must have been a scary experience, like you say. Like, it just looks like an absolute crazy world, the bobsleigh. Like, watch it. Like, can you remember back, like, that the first time you went down the ice, like a full blown? Can you remember that, your first experience? What was that like for the very first time doing it?
The first time going down was, I'm an adrenaline guy. Most football players like the feeling, when the game's on the line, or, when you make a big play, right? Your body is like almost like alive in that moment, right? And I like that kind of feeling. I like roller coasters and those kind of things. I like motorcycles, even though I'm not always safe on them. Like, so that first moment when I got down on the real track at probably 92 miles an hour it's the most exhilarating feeling you could possibly have. And there's a lot of responsibility on the brakeman to push that thing as fast as possible, and the technique that goes into it. So that's what I tried focusing on, the process, right? Like, if you focus on the process, you're not too worried about the result. So I was focused on that. And when I got down and I wanted to beat my time every time, like, that's how I am as a football player. I can run a great, hitch route or a great post route, but I can run it better. I'll come back to the huddle and be like, yeah, I liked it, even if I score a touchdown. But you know what? I could have planted a little bit better there. So that's how I've approached bobsledding too. I'm like, yeah, we had a great time, but let me get back in that car. I want to, try something different. I want to change it a little bit. And I think that's, usually people who are great at what they do are focused like that. They're focused on the process. Like, how can I get even a little bit better? That's why the top players in the world in any sport, they're always pushing themselves, Ronaldo and Brady's and Drew Breeses of the world. Like, they have such a high execution level, but they're never satisfied.
Just going back, you've mentioned a few times, you kind of stole my point before I even got to it, about you're doing your workouts with Drew Brees, Chase Daniels, Jameis Winston. What was it like as someone who's grown up watching kind of players like this play, to actually working out with these guys on a regular basis?
Man, incredible. I mean, the thing that takes me back about some of these guys is the kind of people that they are. And it really started with a guy named Kyle Prater, who is a Saints player, and he was from my local area, and he was the number one receiver coming out of high school, recruited. He went to USC, was incredibly talented, then transferred to Northwestern, which is, again, real close to my area. And he's a guy that I watched play when I was at Illinois as a walk-on, dominate against us. And I was watching Kyle, I knew of him because he's, 6'5", great player. And I didn't start working out with him until I came back to Chicago after Brazil. And my dad's like, you got to work out with Kyle. I heard he's working out with this place. Like, you got to go do it. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm not an NFL player. Like, I don't know. He's like, you want to get better, right? Like, go work out with Kyle. He's a cool guy. He's working out here. I called. They said you can go. And Kyle treated me like I was just one of him. He was not talking down to me. He wasn't acting above me, this or that. And that made me feel like I was part of it too. I was like, man, some of these guys are not as scary as you think that they might be, or unapproachable, or divas, or, they're not all like that. And once I realized that Kyle was like that, it made me feel closer to go put myself out there. When I was playing arena in Florida, Jameis Winston and Mike Evans would practice and throw out in the field in their off season, in the field right next to us while we were playing our practices. So a lot of our players would go, we'd finish practice and then we'd go to the other field and we'd watch them work out together. It'd be just Evans and Jameis, maybe a couple other teammates, and everyone would just huddle around the field and watch them work out, because they're NFL players. And after like the second or third day, I was like, I'm going to go work out with them. Like, I'm going to jump the fence. I'm going to go talk to them and say what's up, and just, because I want to get better, like, those guys are way better than the guys I'm working out with. And that's why I'd rather play, work out with them. So I did that. That's how I jumped the fence, and everyone's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm going to go talk to them. Like, see what's happening. The worst they could tell me is no. And Mike and Jameis were so cool right away. They dabbed me up and they're like, hey man, like Mike Evans, I remember he's like, I've already ran 30 fade routes. Like, Tim, you can have the rest of my routes. Like, go ahead. And Jameis was like, yeah, I got you, Tim. Like, and right off the bat, I was like, man, like, see, that wasn't that bad. All you have to do is cross that barrier and approach them the right way. And they're just people too. So, I started doing that every couple of days and working out with Jameis and developing a relationship with him. An incredible guy too. He knows everyone in every building, from the staff members who take out the garbage to the GM, and he treats them all the same, right? And that's really who he is. Same thing with Drew. Like, these guys, that's who they really are inside. And that's who I respect a lot. So when I'm working out with these guys, and now I'm texting Jameis and Mike and, seeing them on the regular, I'm starting to feel myself a little bit more like, all right, like maybe I'm starting to become like these guys too. And that's kind of why I like helping the younger guys around too, because that's really all it takes is just someone kind of reaching out their hand and saying, hey, you ran a great dig route right there, but if you bend a little bit more, you can run it a little bit better, right? And then that opens up, more pieces to your game. So I've always liked that out of players when they do that for me, when they say, hey, Tim, hey, get over here. I'm going to show you how to run this, drag route just a little bit differently. Or I'll ask them a question, and then the next day they're showing me extra work, because that's how the game evolves, right? You don't get better by just going out there all the time and thinking that you're the best player in the entire world. You have to find other guys that are great. You have to learn. You have to watch film. You have to, be honest with yourself. Like, hey, I'm not a great route runner when it comes to deep routes, but I have to get better at it. So that's what I try to do all the time. And moments like that, like opening my doors with some Kyle Prater and some of these guys, like, I'm like, I grew up watching you guys. I still watch you in the NFL, but now I can, text you and say what's up, like after a game. And like, that's a real cool thing for me.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. Fast forward a wee bit, obviously you're in the UK now. So what kind of gave you the opportunity to move to the UK? You came to study, but what was your kind of motivation to move to the UK to study?
So the UK is like the latest chapter for me. And it happened more so because I wanted to take control of my own trajectory in football and life after ball. I was going through arena football at the time, in the AFL in Rapid City. And it was maybe 3 years ago, like 2022, I want to say, or 2000, maybe even 2023, somewhere around that time, where they were restarting the AFL and we were all promised contracts to, we signed for $1,000 with housing, and that's what the players were all getting. Quarterbacks got a little bit more. We were promised a ton of incentives, a ton of, get them in the door, and life is going to be great. We got this, and this. We got this TV deal. Jeff Fisher's over here. We have this in place. And, that's usual for new leagues and usual for teams, because they want good players in the door. And that's, sometimes things don't always plan out the way they had it. And the funding wasn't secured the way they made it set up to be, right? And we're going through training camp. That's why I said the story of me rolling out the carpets before games. Like, that's exhausting, but like, we had to do it. We wanted to play. We had to push these things 3 hours before the game and then go suit up and play. And I think by the second week, we were still not getting paid fully for our contracts that we signed for. And then they brought us into a meeting and told us, hey, but we don't have the funding. It's because of the league. It's not because of us, but this is what we can do. We can give you a fourth of your salary. We still want you to play. The money is going to come, blah, blah, blah. And all of us were sitting there like, man, this is not what we were promised. This is not what we got signed for. I remember at the feeling a lot of lack of control over my own life. I'm like, man, I got kind of signed into this deal that didn't pan out. And this is not the first kind of time that's happened in leagues like this. And I'm tired of, other situations controlling, my finances, my business. Like, this obviously set my life up in a hard way, because now I have to either find a new team, or I have to go home, or I have to find other opportunities. So I just really didn't appreciate the lack of control over my own life. And a lot of players are in that same boat. When you're trying to make it to the next league and you're giving your all to it, and you get sold, false promises, or the leagues don't work out. And that's the way it is sometimes, right? It's not always great. But at that time, I'm like, okay, I want to, increase my education. I want to work on the business ideas that I've had. I want to expand my network. I want to end on a good chapter and win some championships. Once I got contacted to come out and play over in the UK, I told them no at first. I came out for a visit, and I was like, I still have a couple more years of grinding. And one of my quarterbacks, Sean, called me. He's like, dude, you got to do it. Like, you get to go get your master's degree, you get a scholarship for it, you get to play overseas again. Like, it beats whatever you're doing here in leagues that are folding left and right and not getting paid. You may as well go do that. So I looked into it, and I looked at the scene. I knew how much it's growing over here with BAFA, and the rise of like viewership of the younger demographic, and the podcasts that are going on right now, and the different kind of ventures, having teams from America go play in London. And I'm like, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of the growth somewhere. I want to try to help them. I want to help the younger guys out there. I want to use the 28 years of experience I have and go help shape the game a little bit and have some fun too.
Absolutely. I guess you kind of talked about how it felt when the team broke the news of the money not being in the league. But I guess as not just as a player, but as a person thinking about how you're taking a look towards your life after football, how did it feel kind of making that decision that you're kind of you for so long you've been pursuing one opportunity after the next, but always within mostly football, within the sport. How were you feeling, kind of thinking, I'm now going to start looking towards the future?
Yeah, I mean, it was just like reality hitting me in the face, because at that point, this was maybe the second or third time where I had, and this happens in football and sports and all over the place, is that you can get sold one dream or told one thing, and then a different thing happens, or a coach gets fired and then a new coach comes in. It changes. It's just football. That's the way it is in a lot of systems, right? I don't think that team that signed us all anticipated that the funding wasn't going to be there. It's not like they meant to lie to us or anything like that. They had bad intent. But with a new venture and new leagues, you're liable for these things to happen. And I was tired of that happening to myself at that certain point, with how much effort I put into it and how much care and time I put in. I'm like, I don't want this to happen to me anymore. So it was just a reality check for myself, thinking, hey, I can do this for a few more years over here, and I could maybe make it back up to the CFL. I still have agents, reaching out to me about, workouts and stuff, and be on the cusp of making it, or I can take things into my own hands and go play at a for first system over there, get my master's degree, which will help me for the rest of my life. And then, increase, network and capability. And I have to prepare for life after football. It was the first time I thought that, because every football player in the entire world who has dreams of playing the NFL, that's all you think about. You're like, I'm making it to the league. Like that's what's going to happen. And I also realized that a lot of players go through a really dark period when they usually hang up the cleats, with loss of identity, with loss of direction, because you're used to being celebrated and living one life that's very structured for you. And I've seen it firsthand with players. I've seen it with friends. I've seen it, it can be really hard to take that helmet off and become I'm not gonna say a regular person, but become a different identity. So I was trying to look out for myself too, because I know how much I love the game. And I'm like, man, once I take that helmet off, I better have something else like that I care about too, or else it's going to be really hard for me.
And obviously coming across to the UK, you said the scene is still growing here, and at kind of uni level in the UK, they do play to the NCAA rules. Did that help make the adjustment a wee bit easier for you?
It was, I mean, so the talent level was, I would say, there's a different gap. I'm used to playing against pros in the US, so it's faster and whatnot. Not to say that there aren't really talented players here. The Americans they bring out here, and some of these guys who have only been playing 3-4 years, there's definitely some players that catch my attention where I'm like, man, this guy's got it. Or, there's receivers out there who almost, I feel like are almost as me or can make plays that I can't. And I'm like, man, he's only been playing for 2-3 years. Like, that's exciting to me, because that means that their trajectory is pretty high. What the hardest part was for me was being a student athlete again. Like, I've been playing pro for 8 or 9 years in the US, and I'm used to being that my only job. I go to practice in the morning, I go to meetings, I take care of my responsibilities, and then I'm done by like 3:00. And then the rest of the day is mine, and I can relax, and that's my only focus. And then when I got to UE, and I'm like, now I have to wash my clothes and my practice jersey, I have to schedule, I have to take the bus, I have to do my homework, I have to show up. I'm like, how? Like, how? So it forced me, man. The first couple of months, I was banging my head against the wall. I was telling my mom, like, I don't think I'm going to make it. Like, I still haven't found a place to live yet. And then I still have to do master's classes and learn playbooks and introduce myself and learn. So it was a really hard challenge. And I like challenges, but that was testing my limits for quite a bit. But the guys are really special out here. I think the UK players in particular do a great job of taking Americans under their wing and trying to enhance them into their culture. It's not really looked at like a you and us kind of thing. It's more of a like, let's come together because we both love football. And to me, that's really cool. Like, have teammates, bringing me out to the bars in the off season, like, hey, you got to try this cider, or, taking me to go see a castle, or, trying to show me a bit of their culture. I love it. I'm like, this is awesome. This is something that you're really proud of and you want to bring me and share me with it. Like, I can appreciate that. So I'm always going to be thankful for guys that invest time in you and want to show, culture and are happy that you're there with them. And that's why I like the scene out here, is because it's small, but, we're together.
Yeah, and I think culture is exactly the word that springs to my mind, because I guess, Tim, you land in a part of the world where there's several teams that are really starting to set the standard in terms of culture. So from your perspective, of course, you played with the UW Bullets, the multi-time national champions in college ball, the Bristol Aztecs, who are the defending national champions in BAFA, and also in that part of the world, we've also got the SGS Pride, which again is, I guess, an academy set up for some of the most talented players in the country. Obviously, it's maybe not fair to compare talent in the UK with what you've seen in the States and your pro experiences, but obviously there's that culture and that desire to get better and be the best. So can you maybe speak to what you've seen in your experiences?
Yeah, well, I think the scene out here is definitely a little bit different. Like, I'm still getting my head wrapped around the different systems, because like you said, you have the academies, right? You have the Bucks Premier League, you have these other teams that have under 19 programs. So it's different systems and setup than I'm used to in the US, right? The US has different leagues, and there's minor league teams and this and that. And there's almost like a system to work your way up if you're good enough, which I was able to do. Here, you almost have to make a name for yourself or get invited to a camp, or there's less coaches to see more players over here. So you have to stand out or know somebody or pay your dues and keep showing up. And it's really more on the players to make that gap lesser, so that they can get noticed, right? And that's why I respect them more, because they have to show up to camps and pay extra fees, or they have to go buy their own kit or pay for their own helmet. Like, when I heard that from my teammates this year, I was like, you have to pay for your own helmet? Like, what? It blew my mind, because I'm like, I would never think of that in a million years in the US, of a player paying for their own helmet to use for a game. But I respect it 10 times more, because I'm like, man, this person's really invested. Like, if you can show me you care that much about it, and you're going to take your time away from your family, away from your friends, then I'll ride with you. Like, hey, I'm going to go extra mile for you. I'll dig deeper in the fourth quarter for you, because I know that you're putting stuff out there. So I think that teams out here do a good job of recruiting like really good players from the ELF or European football. And it acts as a system, because you can go play in Europe in GFL, or, at the ELF. I know they split their league up, but it gets you active. You can go do that and then come here and play for a team like the Aztecs, and then go up and get more exposure and play in another league, or just keep playing football. We had some teammates this year that we did our player introductions, and they pretty much said, like, I'm here to have fun and play ball again. Like, because if you love playing football, it's really hard to let go. Like, it really is. And if you have a chance to go play with your teammates and get in the locker room, you may as well take it.
Yeah. I think what Gav mentioned about the UK game and that culture and trying to that shift, you're now starting to see it working. And things like, you've got the NFL draft court this weekend, when you've got Seydou Traore, who came from London to Mississippi State, and he's now going to get an NFL draft. We've had players in the past like Travis Clayton, you've had David Ojabo, those players from the UK that are now making it into the NFL. And we had Peter Clark, who plays tight end for Temple, and we had him on the podcast last year. You can now see that pathway coming from the UK towards getting these scholarships.
Yeah.
Like you said, the players are just as talented, but you need to have that extra bit of work, and it's good for us in the UK to see these players now making that. Because I think even if you go back 10 years, you would never have imagined that the British players would be going on and having that sort of impact in the NFL. Is it something you've noticed since you've came here?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I pay attention to that, especially when players are getting either scholarships or looks. And that's something I hope to maybe help make connections, because I know some coaches in the US from my playing days, but when I see a player that wants it as bad as the way I felt about it my whole life, and then they get an opportunity. And I think one of our players, Dior, who's a really talented defensive end this year in Bristol, or last year in Bristol, I think he just got a scholarship to a US team. I mean, it makes you feel part of their journey, but also really appreciative that they're getting opportunities. I'm like, that's really cool to see, because that's how I was my entire life. I'm going to work my ass off until I get an opportunity. Doesn't matter the odds, doesn't matter how many people tell me I can't do it. And I know that these guys are going through the same thing, if not worse, because it's not their natural sport. It's not something they grew up playing. It's something that they have to overextend themselves and really put themselves out there. And I can imagine the conversations they probably have, with their friends. What are you doing? Like, why do you play that sport? Or why don't you just get a job? Or, that doesn't pay you well. Those aren't questions are easy to take, when you have a dream that looks illogical. But these players that can go out and get that opportunity, it makes other guys see that and be like, I can do that too. Right. And that's how I was molded myself. Like, hey, I see Kurt Warner, got to the NFL and he was bagging groceries at 28. I can do that because Kurt did it. Right. So I have that example. I have a model that I'm following. And that's the same thing that players, whether they realize it or not, they're opening up doors and possibilities for these younger generations just by doing it right now. So they're taking on that extra work. And, when you get a scholarship to play in the US as a UK player, man, that speaks volumes to how much work you're putting in.
Excellent. Just coming back to, you kind of wrap up the conversation about your time at Bristol and stuff like that. Tim, so you won 2 championships at Billets, and then you're on to last. So you asked Jill, as Gav mentioned, that is technically defending champions. Coming across to play in the UK in a sport that's still developing, how much did it mean to you to then go and win and lift some more trophies?
I mean, it was awesome. I mean, I looked at it as a way to, if I am retiring now, like, I still entertain the cause. I'm like, yeah, like maybe I do love football still. And yeah, but to end on 2 high notes like that, and the Aztecs game, like the way that game unfolded was everything that I could ask for. If that's my last game playing, and the way that that game shaped up, like the first half, it was a dogfight. I mean, it took every single player and staff member on that team from start to finish, and we were not winning that game in the first half. I think we all kind of looked at each other out there and realized, hey, this is the team that gave us a really bad feeling earlier in the year, and we still really want to beat them. And we were down maybe 14 points, 12 points or something. And so almost all of the leaders on the sidelines got together and started rounding the guys up. Like, we either go home and sit on the couch and think about this the rest of our lives, or we turn it on and beat these excuse my language, but that's what it comes down to. It's either now or never. And at that point, then things started clicking. Guys got defensive stops, and then turned into interceptions, that turned into fumble recoveries. And then we got some things clicking on our offense, and we knew we were a talented team. So once we turned it on, you could kind of see London like, uh-oh, like, they're like, wait a second, like, these are not the same Aztecs we played earlier. Like, they got a little extra fight in them. And once our whole team turned that page on, man, it was special. It was special because, like I said, if one person, if the running back has 5 touchdowns and carries the team, like, yeah, that's amazing. But then, it's one player doing a lot of work. It wasn't that way. It was almost everybody doing their job and making plays. There's a guy who flew in out of nowhere, a guy who I think was there for like the last 3 weeks, and he missed an assignment and flew in the wrong gap and then knocked the quarterback out, and he caused a fumble. And like, it's just plays like that you don't forget because they mean something to you. So that felt really special to me. And like, having a couple of rings at the end of your career, that feels nice too.
Yeah, and especially to do it that way, as you said. I mean, that game was just such a fantastic advert for the British game. So, I mean, the final score, I think, was 27-24 for the Aztecs over the Warriors. And yeah, going right down to the wire. Yeah, just a fantastic way to get it done.
It was, I mean, that and even like I said, when we're on the sidelines and we're all kind of like checking, I remember that feeling too. And I was like, man, if this is my last game, I'm not losing. Like, that's it. End of story. Like, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to get these guys like going, because I do not want this taste in my mouth the rest of my life. Like, if this is the last game of football, I'm winning. Like, and I think everyone kind of felt that way too, down to the head coach and that the coaching staff, how much time they dedicate for it, the OC, the DC. And what I like about the UK is that you guys are that, football here is asked to do more with less almost, right? It's not as set up as America. You got players who are paying for their helmets. You got players who have to show up after working a 9-to-5 job at 7 o'clock at night. And they're out there till 9:30 in the cold rain, right? But they're doing it, and they're doing it because they love the game. And to me, I think that's even more special than, some of the American systems, because we kind of been doing it for so long. It's a little bit more situated in the path that you can follow and the programs. You don't have to overextend yourself, but here you really have to invest to make something of it. So the coaching staff, the hours they put in, the training staff, the trainers out there, it takes everybody.
Tim, me and you were speaking just before we came on here. We're at the start of the Brit Ball season for 2026. You don't currently have a team at the moment. We kind of mentioned a wee bit of retirement there. What do you think that the year of 2026 holds for you in terms of American football?
So I tell my dad this all the time, and a lot of guys like reach out, and I do like it when, I'm at competitions or watching games and there's guys coming up like, please, Tim, like, please play one more year. Like, we want to see you play. Like, obviously that feels really nice, because that means like the way I play is appreciated and that people out there want to see me keep doing it. But what I keep telling people, my parents too, or my at least my dad, because he loves football, I'm like, I think it's at a time and a place to start using my mind in the game more than just my physical abilities. I've been doing it since I was 6 years old, and I, could probably play until till they kick me out of the thing with how much I love playing. But at a certain point, I've watched the game from so many different levels. I've gone through so many different experiences as a player. I think it's time for me to help, other guys in their own journeys, open doors for them and teach them about the game a little bit. I've had those influences in my life, my whole life. I wouldn't be, accomplish half of the stuff that I did if it wasn't for other people showing me what to do, if it wasn't for other people believing in me, if it wasn't for coaches taking me under their wing and saying, hey, Tim, you got something, but it needs a little bit of work, or let me show you, or stay after practice here, or hey, come to this workout, right? I wouldn't be where I was if it wasn't for the people that opened that door. So that's what I'm hoping to do with my business now, and opening up, the avenues for players to learn what they need to learn. Because if you don't know about the game and you don't know where your gaps are, it's almost impossible to reach another level, right? You're kind of walking in the dark. And that's how I felt as a kid growing up. I'm like, man, I know I got it. I just don't know how to get there. I don't know what I need to do. So now that I've learned that process, I want to help, these other players, get opportunities, but I also want to see them work for it too. Everybody wants it. Everyone says they want to be in the NFL. Everyone says they want to be a D1 player. Everyone says they want to be the, badass number one receiver. But how many people are showing up after practice and staying there, working with their quarterbacks? How many guys are watching film instead of scrolling TikTok? How many guys are, seeking opportunities to grow instead of just talking about it? So hopefully I can help bridge that gap a little bit.
Absolutely. As we come to, and you talk about obviously how you can support the next generation of players. I guess a couple of things that really stood out to me throughout this evening's conversation is you've obviously talked about the variety of opportunities that you've gone and pursued, certainly in football, but also, like mentioned, with the bobsled and outside of football, and having the resilience to deal with the challenges and setbacks that come along the way. So I guess, what advice can you give to young players in terms of, I guess, being able to keep going, and what really drives you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it's a mindset. It's about seeking challenges and then not being afraid to put yourself out there. Just like in the bobsled arena, right? I didn't know how it's going to go. I don't know if I'm going to be successful. I don't know if I'm going to get hurt here. There's a lot of factors that could drive fear to tell me not to do it. Right. There's almost every real reason for me to be like, no, thank you. I'm a football player. I'm going to stay home. Right. Or, hey, to make the NFL at 27 years old when I'm still trying to grind is maybe a 0.0% chance of doing it, is it 0.02%. But is that going to make me not pursue it, or am I going to do what I have to do to find out if I got it right? Pursuing those challenges and actually stepping up to them, I think, is the hardest part for guys to realize, because until you actually realize that challenges shape you to become stronger and more resilient, unless you learn that factor, you're always going to step back for safety, because almost everyone wants to be, careful, or not, do what's safe, or what my parents tell me to do, or what I think you should do. But realize it's the people who put themselves out there a little bit more and say, hey, coach, I really think I can be a starter on this team. What do I have to do? Right. Just having that conversation is scary for people. But if you can do it, at least that coach is thinking about you now. Right. At least now you know what I have to do to become a starter, because almost everyone sitting in as a second stringer or not playing, they want something better for themselves. But are they going to take action to change it? So that's really what it's about. It's taking action and not being afraid to fail. I think that's the hardest part, is when people don't get what they want, or if you're seen like, I want to make it to the NFL, but if I don't make it to the NFL, how are people going to judge me? Are they going to think blah, 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 right? And that fear stops almost 99% of people. Oh, I don't want to look bad. I don't know what's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. And then they end up not accomplishing it, right? So to me, you may as well take the challenge and prepare yourself. If it doesn't work out for you, at least it's going to shape you and give you data to work with. It's going to refine you. It's going to tell you what should be working or what isn't working, and then allow you to kind of, grow through it. And that's kind of always was as an athlete. And when I'm in the gym, like, I don't always love being in there for an hour and a half. I don't always love sitting in meetings, when I'm dead tired and I slept for 3 hours, right? There's almost 99% of it I don't love, but I want the goal. I want to get better. I want the goal, and I want the goal more than anything that's telling me not to do it. So as soon as players kind of come to that realization, hey, I got to stick my neck out a little bit. I got to do the extra work. I got to be early for practice. And they start realizing, when you do that, you start opening up doors for yourself. I think that's when the special players start to merge. And there's some guys out here that got it. I've seen some teammates, and I'm watching the scene, and I'm, looking at these guys like, man, all you're missing is just a little bit of the keys, and keep going.
Yeah. Tim, I was going to move on to talk about level up as what your coaching and training program is. But the point I was going to make, I think, when I come to it in a second, is you've made this point throughout this whole conversation without me actually asking you about it, and it's the fact that your core belief in your training program is skill is temporary and the process is forever. I was going to ask you to explain that to me, but I think anybody watching and listening to this tonight will have picked that up throughout this whole conversation. So I don't really have much to ask you about it. It's just like what you've told us tonight, that core belief shines right through in you, and it's clearly something that is very important to you.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what the whole concept about it is reaching that next level, right? It doesn't have to be even for American football players. It can be for entrepreneurs. And that's really what I hope to develop the mindset, because other business minded people are starting to ask me, hey, how do you do this? And that's what I want. I encourage that, because if you're seeking another level in your life, whether that's your relationships, whether that's your football player, whether you want to become a great businessman, whatever, right? You have to find the little keys to success to level up. It's not just going to happen to you. No one's going to hand it to you. It's not going to, because you wish for it overnight or you blow out the candles and you want it really bad, right? You have to find out how to level yourself up. And that's what my whole life has been, is moving leagues up and falling down and getting hurt. And, I always had that desire to say, you know what, I'm picking myself back up. I asked myself, even when I was going through contract disputes with leagues or not getting paid, I'm like, is this going to stop me, man? And almost every single time I said, no, it's not. If this is not going to stop me, then I'm going to keep going. And it's not always easy to do that, so I want to help facilitate those younger players to make them want it too, not that, hey, I can connect dots for you or I can open doors for you. I probably could, but I want you to work on doing that, right? Because that's how I had to do it. So it's something that I came up with maybe 7 or 8 years ago when I was thinking about life after football. And I know how I am. I love football. And if you just take it away from me and I take that helmet off, I'm going to be depressed probably for about 3 or 4 years. I could go into coaching and everything, but it's just not going to feel the same. So once I started developing it and pushing myself a little bit more in the business aspect, I'm like, man, now I have something to care about beyond football that also breeds into football and helps other athletes go there. To me, it's the best of both worlds. Shout out to my teammates. If you guys have heard Darius Robinson from our team up in the Aztecs, he's very business-minded, great player, very talented. I took a lot of his game from just watching him in practice, and I'm going to try that. But he was also ahead of me in the business world, so I got to sit next to him, and that's the great thing of football. I got to sit next to him on the bus and pick his brain. Hey, Darius, man, how do you do the editing a video so fast, or how do you put that scene together? He goes, oh man, this. Let me show you, right? He's not charging me. He's just come over to him. You're my teammate. You're my guy. Let me help you along the way. And that's a great thing about football. That's a great thing about coaching staff, that people who actually care about you. And I've got tons of great coaches and connections that when they actually care about you as a person and not just what you can do, usually that player is going to give you everything they have. And that's kind of how I've felt when some of the coaches that have checked up on me, or they cared more about my physical attributes and who I am off the field, man, I'll remember and be thankful for that for the rest of my life. Because now you're teaching me that it's not just about the wins and losses and what I can help you do, but you're trying to shape me to become a better person for my life too. So I hope that I'm starting to embrace that hat too.
If anybody does want to get involved or kind of contact you, Tim, to kind of get involved in the program, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, they can for sure go on my website. I think it's www.tim-lucas.com, or hit me up on my Instagram. I have a business page for Level Up. And I'm expanding that too. And I always appreciate other entrepreneurs or people who want to get involved for that too. Just, collaborations like this go a long way. And that's why I appreciate your guys' platform. And hopefully the game is going to grow in the next couple of years. And I can add to that a little bit too.
Appreciate it. Tim, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of My Conversation With. Like I said at the start, it's something we've been trying to arrange for a while, and having spoke to you for the last hour and a half, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, of course. Well, thanks for having me on. I do appreciate you guys taking time for that. And, we made it happen. It took a little bit of coordination, but you guys keep going too, though. A lot of times that stuff that gets happening behind the scenes in terms of the podcast, in terms of the people who are helping behind the scenes, they don't get a lot of thank yous. So let me take the time to say thank you guys for that, because you are helping the game grow and in doing it in a way that no one is really asking or telling you to do. So that takes a lot of effort, and I appreciate it from my side.
No, I really appreciate those kind words, Tim. We do really appreciate it, and that is all we're trying to do. So I do appreciate it, and thank you didn't recognise that for us. So, Gav, thank you for joining me in the chair tonight. As always, it's been a good one.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. It's been a great conversation. Just so many lessons, I think, for all of us to take away in a fantastic journey. And in football so far, Tim, and just can't wait to see what happens next.
Hopefully I see you guys out at a game. I'm going to try to get out to a few games and then pick each other's brains and support, British football.
Yeah,
excellent. To everyone that's watching, listening, thank you for tuning in conversation with on this episode. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube and podcast platforms and follow us on Instagram and TikTok to keep up with what's coming next. Until next time, we'll see you soon.